Welcome to the second meeting of the Capital Improvement Committee. Before we begin, we can have introductions, starting with Brian, please.
I'm Brian Rose. I'm the Planning and Zoning Administrator.
Gala Breck.
Tim Redmond, Planning Board Member and Chairman.
Earl Carroll, Community Rep and Vice Chairman.
Nick Camposano, Selectman Rep.
Thank you. First order of is the minutes of May the 19th. Does anybody have any corrections or additions?
I think as we just got them, Tim, and seeing as how we don't have a quorum yet to approve them, I think the best thing to do is defer these until the next meeting.
So
And I'm not even sure I can make a motion because we don't have a quorum to vote
you
on.
don't have to, we'll just do that. Okay. Tonight we have three groups that are presenting to us. The Sewer Commission, the Public Works Department, and the Cemetery Trustees. So we will begin with the Sewer Commission, and I yield the floor to the Sewer Commissioners.
Good evening. My name is Kathy Hooton. I am a sewer commissioner. And with me tonight is Jim Bouchard, who is our past chairman and will be here to assist me. I want to thank all the members of the CIP for being here tonight to hear our presentation for the Sewer Commission.
Kathy, when you begin on your sheets, we may be out of order, so could you just identify which sheet you're going to talk about as you go through them?
Yes,
All in order.
I don't have the latest CIP report in front of me, but I do have a CIP matrix, and I also have a CIP matrix that is one that I have done on hours to work with Brian to update and correct reports, and there are additions and deletions that we will be discussing this evening. Could you pass those around?
Yeah, actually, I passed that one around. It's the
I
same.
think you all have, that is the copy that Brian gave you? Okay.
Is that what you're starting with, your matrix, Kathy?
Well, yes, I think
The
what
little
we'll
one?
do is we'll work with them together. Are we all?
We have a few of your submission sheets. We have one for an Elm Street Pump Station Force Main Replacement.
Correct.
We have a submission sheet for Manchester WWTP upgrades and capacity.
Correct.
We have one for Moose Club Park. We have one for Knollcrest. And then we have your matrix. So that's the four sheets that we have.
Great. As you'll notice, the first line, which is the Manchester wastewater treatment plant upgrade capacity, this is the final year of the bond on that particular line at $109,000 for 2011. The second line is the Manchester wastewater treatment plant capacity and upgrade, which is still being finalized with Manchester wastewater treatment. They have told us that by the end of this year, they will have and should have what the actual figure will be that we will have to contribute our percentage for the upgrade at the Manchester wastewater treatment plant. Those, again, are estimate costs only. We're leaving them in there until we know what the final figures will be. And we are hopefully going to get them by the end of this year. They have been postponing them, but there are some issues that are over there that they, of course, need to address. At our last meeting on May 11th, the Hermsdorf project was voted to be removed. The Shirley Park project was voted to be removed, and the Lynchville Park, Danis Park project was voted to be removed. What is missing off of the bonding part of the CIP, and Jim and I were just talking about it, it seemed to have just fallen off, is that we do have two bonds that are existing and have existed, one being the Moose Club Park bond, which began in 1998 and will go through 2013. On the sheet that I've provided, I have detailed that to you, and those are the figures that correspond with the audit report. On another one was the Knollcrest bond, which was bonded in 2001. That will continue until 2016. And again, those are the amounts that the Sewer Commission is responsible for paying for the users.
May I interrupt you, please? Your
Sure.
submission sheet says it goes to 17, so should we cross out the year 2017?
Yes, you should put 2016. Again, that agrees with the audit, and that agrees with the total balance that's due.
I apologize, that was my change. I inadvertently assumed that you had just used the old numbers from the previous form, but
That's okay,
I went ahead and changed that to 17
whatever, just clarifying it.
This was something that both Brian and I talked about this afternoon. He was being, the new kid on the block, was not aware of the Moose Club Park nor the Knollcrest Park bond. And we did get the worksheets completed, and again, the total due on those both bonds are exactly as to what is reported in the audit and the timeframes thereof. So that will take part of the bonding aspects that the Sewer Commission is responsible for through 2016.
Kathy, may I interrupt again?
Yeah.
You didn't mention anything about the upgrade in the down
That-
Bernardville area. Is that coming up?
That's coming into the
Okay.
next.
I thought that was part of your bonds, I'm sorry.
I agree with you that I would think that that should be probably moved up into that area of the bonding, because ARA is a bonded project, and we should take that out of the line, the
213,
213 that it's already associated with.
okay.
The inflow and infiltration projects are those that we coordinate with the Department of Public Works. We have reviewed past expenses on this particular line. At our last meeting, we discussed that we are looking at, in 2012, budgeting, reducing the budget from $185,000 to $95,000 per year. However, what we are currently doing is we are reviewing the projects that we have reported to the state of New Hampshire in the CMOM report. And we are working presently with DPW to see if the 95,000 is a realistic figure. But at this time, we are going to leave it in. That is the figure that we reported last year, and that is the figure that we are going to stay with at this particular time. That figure may fluctuate based upon future conversations and projects that may need to be done. So we are just, the commissioners are aware that there is a reduction. The reduction was primarily done because of the ARA funding that we are going to be doing, and we are hoping to keep the users' fees from increasing. And there would be a lot of inflow and infiltration work, because we have done such a massive amount of work at Mast Road that would be eliminated, because all of that project work is new. So we are taking all of that into consideration, and that is where the Sewer Commission is as far as the inflow and infiltration area is concerned. On the Mast Road Sewer Project, which has come along very, very well, I would say that we were more than pleased that the main line was completed before Memorial Day weekend. That was a great accomplishment by Cardillo and Sons, with DPW, with Hoyle and Tanner, and with everybody that has been involved. The work that they have accomplished, the areas of concern with contamination, with ledge that they have overcome and went through. We are very pleased with how this project is running, and they are now working on the laterals that are going to be going across. Night work, you know, is into effect. We're hoping that they will be through by July 4th, and the final paving for that will be in the fall. And once the project is considered completed, a year and 1 month from the date of completion is when we will be responsible for beginning to pay our share of the bonded amount. Therefore, in 2012, we hopefully anticipate beginning the bond payment that is stated on your report of $179,808. That will start in 2012, and then each year thereafter, the amount will decrease to $89,900. Again, that was a $2.5 million bond. We're responsible for $1.25 million at a very, very low percentage rate. The DPW truck number 312, after much discussion at our last meeting, in accordance with agreements that were made in prior years, unfortunately, we are not going to be.
What is DPW truck number 312? I don't find it on
You'll
my
see
list.
it on line 49 on DPW's vehicles.
Oh. See, we
It's
used to.
actually 47 on your
47 now?
matrix.
Okay, 47 on the new matrix, 49 on my old
And I
one.
have it as
We
DPW
use-
344.
No, that's the Sterling Vacon.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
Vacon.
That's the one you're talking about, right?
No,
Oh, the
Oh,
I'm talking about a
sewer
pickup.
foreman's pickup.
This is a
oh,
pickup.
okay, okay.
This, we,
Sorry.
the number that you've used is, we've gone to the fixed asset numbers for our identification purposes, which is okay, we'll do it in the future, but,
Well,
I think- I
it's
think
part
what
of our
she's-
line.
I think what she's referencing is that the old matrix had that vehicle in there, and she's just gonna now tell you that they're deleting that out of the matrix.
It's,
So,
It's going into,
line 70 on your matrix. Fixed asset 299.
fixed asset
Okay,
299.
got it, 299. All right, so it's not 312, all right.
2000.
It is number 312.
It was the truck that was, it was a truck that was priced at $53,000, of which they wanted the sewer commission to be responsible for 50% of that cost. The understanding of the agreement in the past has been that we purchased the truck before, and we purchase one truck, they'll purchase the next truck. We'll see what we do with the third truck. And that was the understanding that I believe both Mr. Bouchard and Mr. Crean were aware of. I was not here at that time. And the vote was taken. It was a 3-0-0 vote at the Sewer Commission meeting on May 11th, that we would not be contributing the 50% towards the pickup truck. However, at the same meeting, we did agree to contribute 25% for the Sterling Vacon truck, which Brian had mentioned to you, which is a cost, the total cost, as was explained to us by Mr. Quorum, was $392,000. So therefore, that would be a $98,000 cost that we have expensed in the year of 2012, if the CIP committee so agrees to the purchase of the truck. But the sewer commission is, like I said, we have voted. We are 100% in favor of contributing 25% of the cost, because it is used towards vacuuming sewer lines and other issues that we have with the sewer.
Now, did your vote include a vote of confidence from Public Works?
I think I saw a smile from somebody when we did that, so I think that was.
Because we've been told in the past that you guys had a 50/50 agreement with the VACCON truck.
No, that, actually, in your sewer commission report on that line, it does say 25%, and that was exactly the amount that
From the
was
very
presented to
beginning.
us.
Okay, as long as we're all in agreement.
Yep,
Okay,
Tim, just to address that, we took a look before we visited with the school commission. We added up the hours of use for the last couple of years, and 25% actually tracks pretty closely.
okay, I'm just making sure you're agreeing with all this before you have to tell us about it in the next presentation.
I had selective amnesia on the pickup truck, but
Okay, thank you.
And based upon that, I think that we have pretty much covered what we are estimating for our capital improvement projects from 2012 to 2016. And once again, we have reintroduced the two existing bonds that should have been there prior.
Did I miss the new Elm Street project?
Oh, you did, I forgot that one. The new Elm Street project is one that you have a CIP worksheet on. We are projecting a cost of $100,000. That is a projected project for 2016.
There's no description other than a force main replacement?
I'll defer to Mr. Bouchard to describe that.
Well, I
to
mean,
you.
if that's what it is, that's what
Tim,
it is.
it's part of the, yeah, the force main that comes out of the pump station and the pumps
Right,
are very old and are getting tired. We're gonna replace all of, the projection is to replace all of the pumps and the force main, all in one shot and bring that current.
and where do they run? In the street?
Pardon?
Where's the force main?
Force
Under
main
the
comes
road?
out of the, yeah, it does come out of the building, goes down the streets, and then ties in. So, but it's a very short segment. Most of the cost is in the pumps. Those are two large
I'm
pumps.
just thinking about how they just paved down through there. But that's
Oh, it doesn't go all that way
That's
down.
2016.
It doesn't go out, does it go out that way?
No, it doesn't go all the way down, it ties in.
Would it just go up to one of the manholes and then gravity out of one of the manholes?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
That's good. All right, do you have anything else to add, Catherine?
I don't believe I do.
Anybody have any questions for the sewer commissioners?
I guess, my question, you are showing elimination of several projects.
Mhm.
Why is that?
Well, I know, well, the Hermsdorf project, we did a survey in the fall of last year. When you need to bond a project, you need 2/3 of the vote. Both the Hermsdorf and the Lynchville Park, when the surveys were done, with the information that was received, there was no way that there was going to be a 2/3 vote. We had sent one over to Hermsdorf to say, who feels that do you need sewer? Do you need municipal sewer? Along with letting them know what the cost of it would be at this time, and the responses back and the letters that were received, the percentage, the amount that came back, there was no way that they were gonna get a 2/3 vote on the bond. So based upon that, Steve and Jim voted to eliminate the Hermsdorf Park. The same thing is with, we did the same thing with the Lynchville Danisville Park. That came back, the 2/3 vote was not there. We hear about it a lot, not a lot, but every once in a while it comes up again, but it's just not there. And Shirley Park?
Historically, we always query the residents with a sanitary survey. Have you had issues? Are you in support of it? Have you had issues with your septic systems? What type of issues might you have had? Would you be in support of of a municipal sewer expansion into the area, given an approximate cost that we have from preliminary data? And we ask, and historically we say that if the bond requires 2/3 of the vote, of the townspeople to support the bond, we feel it's justified that 2/3 of the residents in the area that we're proposing or evaluating for new sewer expansion also be in favor of it. And Hermsdorf, we had less than 50% response to the surveys, and of the 50% responding, we had less than 15 or 20, I think it was roughly 20% said they had identified a few problems with their system. So basically, we have not had anybody calling, but it has been on our capital improvements on our facilities plan for a number of years. And we just decided, since there's really not a strong interest, there doesn't seem to be a real issue with rapid degradation of systems up there. People weren't complaining, of having to replace these. We took Hermsdorf off. Lynchfield, Danish Park, the Sewer Commission over the last, I've losing track of time, my selective memory, but anyway, I think it was about the last 5 years. We've had 2 public hearings down at Bartlett School. We have done 2 sanitary surveys to queried all the residents. We have yet to get back 2/3 of our queries back. I know at one point, following that, the Board of Selectmen themselves undertook a separate sanitary survey, and again, they did not get back the similar types of responses that we were looking for. So at that point, even though there have been vocal concerns, there has been interest expressed, from our point of view, to go in and put in an expensive sewer project, that doesn't have 2/3 of the support of the community, we've said no.
So in other words, it's not so much a matter of is it needed, it's more a matter of is it wanted.
Yes, and understanding, Earl, is, there is a significant price tag that the homeowners would be facing if we were to go in and put a sewer in. So, yes, is it needed? Currently, right now, we have not heard from DES, especially for the Lynchfield-Danish Park area, and we haven't heard of, DES monitors the water quality in the water body down there. They have not reported, excessive levels of contaminants related to, short-circuiting for septic systems to us, similar to what, or a need to go in and do that, as what happened with Riverview Park numerous years ago, when that was, the state finally said that, this is an illegal subdivision, you can't have septic systems, you either gotta, leave or do something else, and that's when City of Manchester coordinated with us to put in, sewer systems over there. So, we think we've done our due diligence to try to find out, to make sure there's good public support to go into these areas, before, forcibly expanding the system and then, passing those costs on to the residents.
And just one other question, the $98,000, which is shown in the matrix for 2012 as the sewer commission share of the VACCON truck, would of course be moved as appropriately, presupposing that the VACCON truck gets moved. It'll track with that,
Yes,
on what we do with DPW.
correct, Earl, that
Okay.
will happen.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Before you leave, Catherine, for the audience at home that's glued to their TV about this program we're putting on, could you please briefly explain your funding, to be sure they understand where funding comes from for the sewer commission?
The sewer commission funding, first of all, primarily, the sewer commission has an enterprise fund, which is a separate fund from the general fund on the town side. The funding comes from the sewer users. Anybody who has a municipal sewer line is responsible. We bill the sewer users on a quarterly basis, and I'm proud to say that since I have been a sewer commissioner, I think now for 4 years, maybe 4 years, over 3, I think 4, 5 years, I have been fortunate to be here, and that we have been able to maintain the cost to the sewer users and not had to increase them. The other funding sources, one of them is the state of New Hampshire, and we also indirectly are funded, of course, through the stimulus fund, which is the federal government. So those are primarily where our funding comes from. We do not get any funding from the town taxpayers.
That's what I was wanting to hear from you. Thank you.
You're more than welcome.
Yes, Nick, I'm sorry, I didn't know you wanted to ask a question.
Are there any long-range plans in your capital improvement for looking at sewer in some of the industrial areas?
We have, the sewer commission itself has always said, and worked with economic development, that in terms of the industrial areas, if there was to be a strong interest to do that, we would definitely bring that to the forefront and consider that a viable need and a plan to provide sewer. To that end, years and years ago, when DOT upgraded the intersection at 114 Shirley Park, we have a sleeve that goes underneath the roadway that allow us to get across into the other side, into the west side of the area. So we're trying to be proactive. It's just a matter of is the need there, and, you know, is it justified? Since we are supported by the users, and, you know, to run a deadline out there for a while, if we know there's a user who's gonna come in and be able to hook on and start contributing, that becomes a reality for us.
Thank you.
If I also might say, I have also heard that I believe that there are relationships that towns and sewer commissioners, when we have the structure that we have here in the town, can operate together if there is some interest in some property, as where the St. Anselm's Drive area is, because not only is the sewer commission going to realize fees from it, but the town will also realize commercial gains from having an entity such as that in the town. And I believe that there have been towns, I know that there have been towns that have worked together, both as a town and with the sewer commission, to make it affordable, and not only be the burden of the sewer users to pay for the commercial or industrial enterprises to come in, but I think it is something that both the town and the sewer commissioners could work together to encourage industrial and commercial uses in the areas that they need, because it's a win-win for both of us.
Okay, everybody all set? Thank you for
Thank
coming in.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much for letting us
Carl,
go
for allowing us to
first,
go
and
forward.
thank Carl Quorum too.
Okay. Before the DPW director gets started, Brian, I'm noting in my book that we have a duplicate of the vehicle replacement program here. One says 3.69 million, 3.63 million, and the first several pages are all the same. So is there a reason that they're not the same number?
Or, are you talking about the worksheets
Right here, the first thing is stapled together.
for
It is-
Public Works?
Public Works, it's the vehicle replacement packet. Then,
Yep.
at the end of that, you have another vehicle replacement packet. The only difference is the numbers for the net projected cost, project cost. The rest of the numbers inside of the packet are identical, and I wanted to know if that was,
And the numbers for 2012 on the face sheet is where the difference is.
yeah, so why do we have two, which one are we using?
I never noticed that there was a difference there, but let me check the matrix here.
I should know the answer to that.
It's 950 and 890.
Oh, I see what's throwing me off.
2012 is 950 and
Back on.
2012 is 897 on one, and then everything from there out is identical.
I know that one of the differences was that sewer pickup that they mentioned, because the sewer commission meeting was after we submitted everything to Brian.
So it's a $53,000 difference, exactly what you said, what they said.
I-
So are we using the larger one then?
Yeah, when we moved that pickup back up to DPW, it increased the
All right, so
number.
we can take out,
Take out the
we can
360.
take
So
out
it- so it's the top
The
one. then.
897.
everything that comes up to road reclamation for the $3.63 million project should come out. And one that's stapled should go in.
The other difference in the numbers, why they're not quite gonna tie, is Brian broke the sewer commissioner's share of the vac truck out. When I put my sheets in, I didn't do that. So there's also that 98,000.
I just did that tonight,
Yeah, we
so
can adjust that on the matrix, though.
Yeah.
All
yeah,
right.
that's already been
Yeah,
adjusted.
it's the
that's
spec
been-
sheets that I think we're gonna be concerned with tonight, and the matrix will follow along.
All right, so at this time, I'd like to open up the floor to our Public Works Director, Carl Querim, and he has Meg Therio with him here. Also?
Yes, Megan Terrio, the town engineer. And let me just, you were asking about the cemetery trustees, and I had a little glimmer of memory. I believe one of them could not attend tonight,
Okay.
so I think they might be on a later agenda to come in and talk to you.
Well, that's
Does
fine,
that
we
ring a
can,
bell with you? No? Okay. I'll quickly address it, and they will probably be in to see you later.
this kind of happened last year, I think.
Yeah. And I tried hard not to let it happen again. Mr. Chairman, would you like to focus on 2012 first, or just go line by line right down through it?
At this time, I'd like to focus on your new things that we're going to be looking at for this year, because we would look at them before we would think about moving anything else in the matrix. Carl,
That
so
is-
if that's okay with you,
That is fine.
it will also help to streamline our evening.
Okay. So the vehicles, just to address them, I'll go down the line, but as we go, I'll make a few comments. The first one is asset number 172, the Sterling Vacon.
Okay, well, then we're out of order, so we'll catch
Okay.
up with you. Give us a minute to catch up with you. Okay, 172, it's the last one in our sheet.
Oh, are you looking at the vehicle details?
Yeah, we got the, they came in order of starting with 299. It doesn't matter, we can follow along with your program.
I was going down the matrix
Okay.
itself, so.
So we'll start with the asset 172.
As the sewer commissioner said, this vehicle is a very heavy-duty, heavily used vehicle. Even though the hours don't necessarily reflect that. The hour meter that you're looking at is an engine hour meter. And this vehicle is the type of vehicle that parks over a structure and it's parked there for a while they do, clean whatever structure they're working on, and then they'd start the front motor and move on to something else. I'll tell you that the rear body, if you've ever looked at the truck, this is the truck with the big blue tank on the back, and it has a belly tank full of water, and it's got the nozzle that sticks off the front that is a suction line. The biggest problem we're having with that vehicle is over the last few years, if you can imagine when they're cleaning, whether it's sewer or a catch basin, they're sucking sand and bricks and rocks or whatever is in a structure. So it's sandblasting the hose, the tube, and right into the tank that ultimately holds that discharge. The walls of that tank have gotten so thin, this is a big 13-yard tank, that there are areas where the tank is beginning to implode. They weld reinforcing in there to try to keep it, but there's a high amount of suction. This vehicle is designed to be able to suck like a big cement block out of a 15-foot deep manhole, so you can imagine how much suction there is when this thing's working. And we're seeing stress and wear, and the tank is actually starting to implode on the edges. So it's just one of those vehicles that may not look bad driving down the road, but when you really get up close and personal to it, it's starting to show its age.
Excuse me, Carl, was it last year, maybe a couple of years ago when this first came up? Did you mention something about being able to only replace the tank rather than the entire vehicle?
Yes, and we have looked at that as an option. It would be, I think, about $120,000 option to just change the main tank and the main fittings and the blower to go along with it. We don't really support doing that. It is possible. We're not advocating it because two reasons. One, the only place it can be done is Florida, and the vehicle would be offline for quite a while it went down to Florida to be retrofitted. But the other main reason is there's an inherent flaw in the vehicle, the way it's designed and the way we use it. The theory is that it has 1,000 gallons of water in the belly. We're going to pull up to a structure. We're going to empty the belly tank, fill the waste tank. We're going to drive somewhere. We're going to dump it. In reality, that's not what happens. What happens is they drive around town and they stop and they do a little bit on one structure, then they move 100 feet down the road, they do another structure, and then they move down the road and do another structure. So what's happening over the course of the day is they're filling the waste tank full of grit, and they're also refilling the water tank. For them to not do it that way, they would have to make several trips. The only place you can dump the grit is back at our gravel pit at DPW. We have kind of a dewatering area, and we have a permit to do that and dewater it and put it in our reclaim. We would lose so much time running back and forth with every single load of water that we'd lose a lot of productivity. So what's happening is that vehicle is running around overweight, way beyond its design capacity, all day long, every day. We would just assume, since we're replacing the truck and it came up, get a truck that is designed to do what we're doing, the way we're doing it. So it can be retrofitted, and the cost to retrofit is about $120,000, but we would rather replace the vehicle.
I also believe that you mentioned that there are couple of companies that make these, VACCON being one, and
Vactor is another, and there's even another one that's not got as big a market share.
are they all fairly similar?
VacCon is probably the most reasonably priced. If you start talking Vactor, they're a much more expensive unit.
Okay, thanks.
The next one down on my matrix, which, let me just see where you might be.
Just tell us the asset number, because we
It's
haven't. them all
asset number 173, and it is a six-wheel Sterling dump. You folks will remember that last year, to deal with the bubble created when a bunch of vehicles got cut and that bond didn't pass, we actually extended the replacement life on our vehicles in the matrix. So this dump is a 12-year, it's on a 12-year cycle. So we're showing it in next year. It's got about 7,500 hours on it, and it's just one of our standard six-wheel dumps. See if Mark talked about anything special here. I don't believe so. It is getting up there in what we're putting into it in maintenance every year. The next one down the list is absolutely critical for us this year. It's asset number 193. It is the Packer. You folks have approved it the last 2 years. It hasn't passed at town meeting for 2 years. We absolutely need to replace that vehicle in 2012. That would be our top priority thing that we need to deal with. Our backup, you know, as you guys know, we have 3 trucks, 2 of them on the road at any given time, and 1 backup truck. And we're starting to have a lot of issues with the recycling truck and the backup truck. So we definitely need to get a new vehicle into the rotation.
How old is the recycling truck, Carl? When you say we're having trouble.
2005, I think.
That's not even 10 years old yet.
No, and those garbage trucks are more like a 5 to 7 year front line. You know, we try to get them off the front line within 5 to 7 years.
Okay, thank you.
The next one down is asset number 275. It's one of our Ford F-350s. It's a 2003 with 73,000 miles on it. And I believe that vehicle is just, you know, the age and the condition of the body itself.
275.
You can see it right up in there. Oh, there it is. 1.5 ton. Yeah, there's nothing special about it other than that, you know, it's starting to get up in the repairs. The next one down is the Ford pickup truck that the Sewer Commission just mentioned. And just to give you folks a little bit of a history, that position, the sewer foreman, changed several years ago. When the position was created, it was a full-time sewer foreman, so the sewer department paid for the truck. Then when we did a reorganization a few years ago, it became a utility superintendent, and he does solid waste, some public works stuff, and sewer. And that's when the Sewer Commission kind of got a little excited about buying a truck for that, where it wasn't all sewer use. And that, I think, comprises all of the vehicles in the 2012 request. I realize it is a very high number, but as you folks are painfully aware, every year is a high number, and every year we defer the purchase of vehicles. It just rolls the snowball down the hill, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So I'm not sure what we do about it. We've looked at bonding and those things in the past, and that hasn't really worked out for us, so.
I just wonder about some of the, in your narratives on line 3 and all of the discussion items, you talk about what it has been spent on these vehicles over the last 3 years. I mean, $10,300 worth of repairs for a pickup truck, $22,800 worth of repairs for a single axle plow truck, $17,800 for repairs for a 1-ton dump. I don't know what to say about the trash truck. And then the jetter is also a lot of annual, a lot of expense over. Why is it costing so much to keep these trucks on the road? Is it the trucks? Is it the drivers? Why does it cost so much to keep these trucks on the road?
Well, I think, mainly, something like the jet truck, the rotor truck, when something goes on that, like a blower, we're looking at a large piece of equipment with very expensive components. The same with the trash trucks. You have so many items, they go through brakes like crazy, and tires, and
I understand
dump
that.
trucks, the plowing application. And quite frankly, these are on the replacement matrix because they're at the end of what we consider their useful life.
Carl, what is the vendor cost? I mean, parts are parts, labor, I assume, is your in-house mechanic?
Right.
And vendor costs if you have to send it out?
Correct.
Wow.
Correct.
Which means that it looks like in some of these larger pieces of equipment, certainly the trash truck and the sewer sucker, vac-on truck, a lot of the stuff you can't do in-house, I guess.
That is true. A lot of, if we have something like a transmission or, something major like that that needs to be done, we're gonna send that out. We don't have the tools or the equipment or manpower to deal with something like that.
How much use does the third trash truck actually get, Carl? Okay.
Pretty substantial. I mean, I could actually get you those hours. I don't have them right with me.
Just on an average, we'll say.
I would guess, Tim, that probably that thing's on the road at least one day a week.
Okay.
Because the collection schedules are fairly tight, so if they have a problem that the truck's gonna be down for an hour or two for a hose, they take the backup truck out
Yep.
to keep going. So
I understand that.
I'd say we probably average a day a week with it.
Okay, thank you. So anybody have any other questions on the vehicle matrix for Carl?
Not
Before we move
for-
on to the next section?
Well, unless he wants to address anything unusual in the out years.
Okay. Yeah, we'll actually go to the matrix instead of submission sheets.
There's really nothing unusual that I can, that kind of jumps off the page at me, other than, each year, when we defer, and I don't say we, meaning you folks, because I know you're not in the business of that, but when the town as a whole defers, it's creating quite a backlog here. I know you encourage everybody to stick to the plan, which certainly is where I would be at. There's really nothing in those out years. Each year we try to update if the costs, for whatever reason, don't look reasonable. We would try to update them, but they pretty much just the same plan.
I remember you talking to us about the Sterling 10-wheeler last year, about how the body was in terrible shape and you wanted to put that in the matrix, which we sent along.
Yes,
Now, you are replacing that body at this time or something to that effect?
yes.
But you still have it in the matrix in 2013 for a new truck. Is that what you want to leave there?
Yeah, it was actually in there for 2012, but I pushed it out myself. The mechanic wanted to do it. That could definitely slide another year if you wanted to, I hope. The reason we left it in 2013 was when we get the truck back with the new body and we run it, it is still an 11-year-old truck from a wiring perspective and from a hydraulics perspective. Well, a lot of the hydraulics will get replaced, but the systems on the chassis themselves are still an 11-year-old plow truck, so
Okay.
we don't have a great deal of faith that we're gonna get 4 or 5 years out of it. I guess we're hopeful, but.
Everything seems to be spaced out pretty well, what you think, Earl?
Yeah. I mean, Carl historically's done a pretty good job of spacing this stuff out, although, looking at the matrix, and we've got a huge bubble in 12 and 13, and then not a whole lot to get into 2017. I mean, we know that, 15 and 16 are gonna change, they always do.
All right, well, let's go on to the next part of it, which would be, in our book, would be your road reclamation, Carl?
Yes. As in the past, what I have submitted is the full, back to the road plan that we originally all came out of the model. So the 2,576,000, and just a reminder to everybody, the South Mass drainage bond payment on the next line down is actually connected to the road plan. So those two numbers added together, if you pulled out your old 2001 road plan.
The
that-
South Mass Green Drainage Project?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, the town, back when we decided to do the green drainage, the decision was made to use road plan money to pay for that, because we're getting a new road out of it and the new drainage system. So that bond payment of 72,000 is subtracted from the road plan total for the 5 years that we pay it back.
So our share of that ARRA money is reflected in these 5 bond payments?
Yes.
Okay.
And so you're saying that the original proposed road plan should have been 2,650,000 approximately?
Right.
Okay.
Just a little tidbit that I'll share with you folks that I'm gonna be sharing with the selectmen and the budget committee is, and again, I know this committee has always been very supportive of, the road plan and what we're trying to do. Over the years, things like the South Mass Green Drainage Project, but many others, Wallace Road Roundabout, just budget cuts in general. At the end of the budget cycle, we end up with somewhat less road plan money available to actually fix roads than what we had requested when we started with. And we're starting to feel the impact of that. So last year, I took the time to actually go back through history and pull out all of those expenses just to get my hands around what are we talking about. And I can provide you a copy of this if you'd like, but basically, to date, since 2004, we have diverted about $5.1 million that would have been allocated to road plan that have gone to other things, or been cut. So the combination of those two actions is $5.1 million less than what we originally planned in road plan expenses.
What would have been the total road plan money if approved in its entirety? Would it have been 200? I'm asking you, if you say it's been 5 point something million has been diverted, from what total?
I don't know if I added that column up, but if you figure about, we started with about 2.3 million and worked our way up to about 3 million now, each year, so I'm looking at almost 10 years worth, so
We're not up to
somewhere
3
around
million yet,
25
are we,
or
Carl?
30 million, huh?
We're not up to 3 million yet.
If you add all of, because remember, there's some road plan money is in the operating budget as well, the resurfacing
Oh, I
line.
see.
and
I'm just
crack
looking
sealing.
at your
You're
actual
just
road
looking at
plan line.
reclamation, right. I'm talking the road plan in total. So it's just one of those things that I want everybody to be aware of, because it's having an impact, and, that coupled with the rising cost of construction, I mean, it's
Well,
certainly.
if we assume an average of $2.5 million.
Nick was
I'm
next.
sorry, Nick, go ahead.
Just a clarification. Originally, when the plan was proposed, there was that escalator
Right.
each year. Is that also included? In other words, what that total should have been versus what it was funded at? Is that included in that 5 million?
Yes, yeah. The escalator is also part of it.
Thank you.
So
Well-
if we assume roughly an average of proposed funding at $2.5 million a year for 10 years, that's 25 million.
Right.
If you're short 5, you got a 20%
Right.
decrease in actual available funding.
Yeah. You know, and one of the things that, that I have to deal with, and it's just a political reality thing, is over the years, you know, you guys have all been at this long enough to remember when we didn't share the list at all. Nobody saw it. It was like the black hole secret list. And the last 5 or 6 years, we've been very open with the list. Everybody sees it. And what happens now is people call us and say, okay, you know, 2012, my road was supposed to be done, because they pulled it out of a newsletter back in 2004, stuck it on the refrigerator, and now it's like, ooh, sorry, your road's actually been pushed out to whatever. You know, we're starting to get that from a lot of residents. So it's just something I need to make people aware. There's rising costs, there's the reality of the budget, there's a whole lot of factors, but if you have an old list from 3 or 4 years ago, that's just not good anymore, and it changes annually, depending on what happens in the budget.
Are you still using the computer model for pavement condition?
Yes, yes, we are. Yeah, and that works very well for us. Just, it comes down to a budget reality situation.
Okay, the road plan has been discussed. Any other questions on the road plan? And we've talked about the South Mass green drainage, I would assume, unless you have anything else to talk about that?
No, other than it's done.
Explaining how the bond works?
It's done.
We've already talked about the Shirley Hill Cemetery wall, that's in 2017.
Maybe.
Maybe.
I'm actually going through our submission sheets, Carl, so I might
Yes,
throw you
yeah.
off of your game.
No, that's fine. I'll do the same thing.
The next one we have is our West Lawn Cemetery expansion.
And just to go back to the wall for one, just
Okay,
for
the
one
wall.
quick second. The discussion that we had with the trustees, if you've ever been up to Shirley Hill Cemetery, we bought a whole end of a field, and we put the first phase of the cemetery in, and even though the cemetery owns the field, where the fence ends today, Paul Welch still hays above it. We don't have to mow that. So we don't want to fence that off and have to start mowing until we actually need it. So that's, we had a discussion with the West Lawn expansion. We're okay up on Shirley Hill, so we just pushed it out there. The cemetery trustees will keep looking at it, and it'll just keep moving out until it gets to the point where, okay, 5 or 6 years from now, we need to really do that.
West Lawn Cemetery expansion is the next one on our submission sheets.
Last year, the selectmen decided that we would do this as an in-house DPW project, the first phase of the expansion. And I think I submitted to you folks the estimate, and we broke the estimate apart by phases. So DPW this year will be grading the site, putting the road in, seeding, loaming and seeding, hopefully even paving, though that remains to be seen how we get through the year with budget. But that's our goal, or our hope, is that we can get the road in and pave this year if possible. If that happens, obviously that would affect the budget. Phase 2, which is what you're looking at in next year, is for, let's see, $71,000.
2012 is the $71,000
All right,
appropriation. right?
phases 2 and 3 is what you're looking at next year. So phase 2 are laying out and pinning the sites, and then laying out the cremation burial plot, and then also fencing. Now, this assumes that that state law doesn't change and that we need to fence the whole cemetery. If that state law passes and we don't have to fence, obviously that number could change through the budget process, but as of right now, we're assuming we need to fence. So what the trustees have decided on is the most cost-effective solution to the fencing that would still look decent. You know, they want the front fence to kind of match what's across the street. The rest of it, I believe, is just like an aluminum, black vinyl chain link. So it would not be real flashy and noticeable, but it would not as fancy as what's out front. And then phase 4 is bringing in some landscaping, which is what you see in year 2013, just to dress it up and make it look really nice.
Carl, does your phase 1 include any of your underground work, like the electrical and the water lines and all that? I don't see any of that on your.
Yes, that is all part of what we're gonna do this year in phase 1.
That's all done with the highway department,
Yes.
assuming you have time and,
Are you
Weather.
guys, are
We're
you guys
we're
gonna
gonna
be
have
doing,
time.
are you guys gonna be doing the grave layout, or is that gonna be
no, that,
contracted out?
It'll be surveyed in.
Dahlberg was in there last year doing it.
Oh, Mike was doing it?
He was out there working on it.
Because I know that they had talked about using a out-of-state consultant who does that all the time.
Right. Yeah, and that's a possibility, but when the time comes, we'll have to go out for a new quote. I mean, it's a big enough number that we'll have to go out and get new quotes.
Anybody have any other questions on West Lawn? Mass Road drainage upgrade. We've talked about this before.
Yes.
Big project.
And you'll see that the number has changed. What we're proposing with Mass Road drainage is that next year, we actually hire somebody to do a detailed drainage study. The whole utility system in Bernardville is really kind of thrown out of whack, just because back when that system was all put in, I don't think anybody would have envisioned what Bernardville looks like today. So we want to really do a detailed study of that, because it's such a big number. Do a detailed study and design of the drainage system down there, TV the lines, get a good look at what needs to be replaced, and a drainage study to appropriately size the lines as well. So what we're proposing is money for design next year, to hire a consultant to really dig into that and properly design it. And then that 1.2 million is obviously subject to change depending on how the design study comes out, but that would be our order of magnitude best guess of what we'd be looking at.
Now, is this in the vicinity of where the sewer work has been done?
Yes.
And aren't they gonna pave all that?
They're just patching trenches.
Oh,
Yeah.
they're not doing their big overlay this year? Oh, okay.
No, it's just permanent patch.
Nick, do you have something else?
No, I was thinking the same thing.
I was thinking the same thing too.
So we don't wanna
Well,
do final paving.
that's
of
why the
whole
water
thing.
department and the public works department work together and get water and that kind of stuff all done in one batch. Fell swoop.
We try to.
Okay. Worthley Hill drainage.
The Worthley Hill drainage, we talked about this last year. This is replacing the drainage system from, basically it's from, where are they not doing? This would be from Merrill. When we did the green drainage project, we designed it such that it could handle an upgraded system up the hill. This would be the money to upgrade the pipes up the hill. And just so you can get your hands around this, that pipe in Worthley Hill now is old aluminum or metal pipe. It's not very deep. There are areas where the top of the pipe is actually exposed. It's that shallow. And in real heavy rains, the pipe is so corroded that the pressure of the water actually, we have little jets of water shooting up out of the ground where, just because of the pressurized flow. The pipe is very undersized. It's on a very steep grade. So this would replace the drainage system going up Worthley Hill. And then that new development would replace from Merrill Road up to the top of the hill, part of the area approval.
Wait a minute, that's not what I remembered. That's not what I'm from the planning board. I thought the new development was responsible down to Tyler Drive.
That's what
It's
it's
Tyler,
actually
yeah,
Tyler,
it's
is what
Tyler.
I'm saying.
That's what
But
it
you're not
says.
saying Merrill Road.
No, I
No,
said Merrill at first, but it is
yeah, it's
Tyler,
Tyler.
because that second detention pond is.
Because it
down
says
by
here,
mine.
Because your narrative says from Tyler Drive to the top of the hill,
No,
That's
the narrative
definitely
should
not
say from
correct.
Tyler Drive to the bottom of the hill.
bottom of the hill.
Bottom,
Yeah.
Much better.
makes a bit of difference.
No.
Well, see, look,
Yeah,
it's
it
like-
says there, the developer's approval is Tyler Drive to the top of the hill,
You are right.
And the town's going
Okay.
from
You are
Tyler.
right.
Tyler Drive down.
I didn't read the whole sentence, my fault.
All right, so your proposal would be from Tyler
Down.
to the Wallace intersection.
Yeah, to Lamson.
That's where it
Now-
ties in.
If the project doesn't move forward, is this a project that we could move out?
It really should be done. You know, like I said, we have to go up there all the time with the road caving in. As a matter of fact, we had a problem up there where the truck fell through this spring.
Okay.
So it's still a mess right now.
Okay.
That project is actually helping the situation out, so without that project.
I remember that.
Drainage is actually worse,
I remember they cut down on the
reducing the.
CFMs by putting,
Flowing down the pipes, yeah.
they installed detention ponds on their property to slow down the water, which has given us a break coming down the hill. I remember that part.
But they gotta build it.
And the chances of that happening are,
It's for sale, so, might be a while.
Okay. Any more questions on Worthley Hill drainage? Transfer station generator.
This was an item that was identified by our, when we redid our hazardous mitigation plan for the town. The transfer station, we identified as a critical asset during an emergency for a couple of reasons. One is the fuel depot for the entire town fleet, and also there's a public health issue with if we can't move refuse out of town in the event of a big emergency, it could create quickly a public health issue. We assumed that we would get a grant of some sort from Homeland Security or whoever. So we do contemplate grant money for this, and it's identified in our hazardous mitigation plan for the town to do it.
Any other questions?
Carl, didn't you do a generator out there a couple of years ago from, was it the fuel shed?
Yeah, we have a small generator that we can wire up to get fuel out of the tanks, but it can't run the compactor for the trash building, and it's really not that great for the fuel either, just the way it's set up. Really needs a more commercial application.
And would this generating system or generator power the transfer station end, or would it also give you and the DPW offices power?
No, the offices are already on a generator. The maintenance building and the offices run on a separate generator. This would only take care of the hopper building and the fuel building at the transfer station. Probably the scale house.
All set? Carl?
Yeah.
Salt brine equipment.
Salt brine, I think I pushed out, if I'm not mistaken.
You did,
Um,
2015.
We, for the last several years, we have been working diligently on a tracking system, and I haven't really made a lot of commotion about it because I wanted to make sure we were really onto something, but we have been utilizing the scale house at the transfer station and weighing every load in and out, really tracking everything that we're putting out, and it has amounted to a pretty substantial savings in our salt use, to the point where EPA and DES actually invited us down to talk to the I-93 corridor communities that are under the gun to control their salt. So I kind of pushed this out a little further because I feel like we're really getting our hands around that system that we're doing now. We're working the bugs out of it. I want to really evaluate whether the salt brine equipment is going to be a needed investment. You know, back 2 or 3 years ago when we first introduced it, based on what we were using for salt, I really felt like this was something we needed to look at doing, and now, it's not that I don't think it'd be helpful, I'm more focused on controlling the salt that we're putting out and getting back to a pre-wetting product, and we may not have to go down the salt brine road.
Okay, Kendall Hadley Drainage,
Kendall Hadley Drainage.
2016 you have that in for.
Yeah. Call this one the Pipe Dream Project. Just a quick history lesson. This was.
It's a pretty important pipe, though.
It's a very important pipe, and I hate to kind of use the word harsh reality, but part of this contemplates getting a hazardous mitigation grant from FEMA. And part of the process for getting that grant is you have to do a cost-benefit analysis. And unfortunately, try as we might to capture every penny of loss that occurred in the floods that we had, didn't come anywhere near touching a project this expensive to fix. So I think we submitted it to FEMA kind of on a draft basis to take a look at, and they came back to us and said, okay, we'll keep it in the system, but until you have a whole bunch more losses, we're gonna not even consider it applied for, because if you apply for it, we're gonna have to deny it. So it's kind of floating around out there, and we're gonna keep adding losses to it, I guess, and if the rules change, we might stand a better chance, but as of right now, we can't qualify for the grant money we would need to actually build this thing, unless we built it ourselves, which I'm not sure that the community would go along with funding that 100% out of tax dollars. So that's kind of where that
Well, if the
project
community
stands.
ever walked through the box culvert under the parking lot of the hardware store, and then got to the RCP that's behind the town hall, and then shinnied through that, and then got back to the box culvert that's under the parking lot where the Porter's Ice Cream used to be, they might support it.
Yeah.
Because I've walked through that box culvert. We worked down there 10 years ago.
Mm.
They used to walk through it and clean it.
Yeah.
The guys did.
It's actually, the pipe is actually pretty meticulous. I mean, it's very, very clean, the pipe part. The box culvert, that's a little frightening.
It's scary, though. See those big rats in there. Okay, West Union Street Bridge.
West Union Street Bridge repair, I provided you a couple photographs, just to give you a good flavor of.
Talked about this last year, didn't we?
Yeah. The photographs that I included are the head walls of that bridge. We actually, over last year's matrix, reversed. I think last year I showed Henry Bridge, doing Henry Bridge first and West Union second, merely because Henry Bridge is so high. But if you look at those photographs of West Union, they are way worse, in way worse shape than Henry Bridge. You can actually see areas where the block is completely gone and the soil behind the block is exposed, which just is not a good situation. So we definitely need to redo those head walls. Our budget, I think, is based on replacing them completely with that Ready Rock wall system, which is a much heavier, more durable block. Obviously, the project would have to go out to bid. I mean, it's a big enough thing that, and something else may come in as an option, but our estimate was based on a Ready Rock installation.
What's the condition of the culverts, Carl?
The culvert is fine. The culvert was just, the bridge, I think, is only 10 years old around.
Is this a result of salt use, road
Yeah.
salt?
Yeah, the chlorides really, those, that wall system's the same wall system that used to be on the sidewalk across from the Dunkin' Donuts, and it just, chloride against that dry cast wall just doesn't hold up. The one down at Henry Bridge is, we're gonna do some repairs. It's really the top couple of rows of block that are bad. So we're gonna replace the top couple of rows of block and try to get a few more years out of the one on Henry Bridge Road. But the one on Henry Bridge is starting to bulge, so that's concerning us a little bit. So they're two different problems. The one, as you can see in the photographs, West Union it's just melted like sugar cubes. Henry Bridge is not that bad, but it's starting to bulge and crack, so we need to do something with both of them.
Could a project like this be a situation where you might extend the pipe and encapsulate the deteriorated wall with your Ready Rock system and just build it out farther and encapsulate all this damaged stuff in the roadbed, rather than to try to save some
I don't know.
expense?
I
Tim,
don't know,
if I
we'd be-
might. Carl, I'm a little confused by the numbers here.
Mhm.
Looking at the worksheet and submission form, we're showing $72,000 above the line, if you will.
Oh, yes, I see your
And
problem.
$103,000 below the line. Looking at the matrix, we've got 72,000 plus an $80,000 grant, that comes out to 152.
Yeah, there's, Earl, I apologize for that. I think last year, if you look at the matrix, the numbers at the bottom there were the numbers we had last year. The 72,000 is the Ready Rock estimate that we just did. We had the folks from Ready Rock out there looking at it. So those numbers at the bottom really need to be updated.
Okay, and so the $72,000 matrix number is a good number.
Yes.
Okay.
Any more questions? Henry Bridge, you've already touched on that one.
Yep.
Did you have anything else to add to that, Carl?
No.
Pleasant Street Bridge replacement, so upper and lower Pleasant Street bridges?
Yeah, and we have submitted these to DOT to have them come out and evaluate them. We have not heard from them yet. Pleasant Street is on the road plan matrix for next year to redo the road itself. Our very rudimentary look at those bridges, we think the bridge spans themselves are fine. There's some cosmetic work to do at the top. If you're familiar with Pleasant Street, they have those large rock walls that people hit. So we gotta do, that has no function to the bridge, it's purely cosmetic. The sidewalks were added at a later time on both those bridges. I would recommend don't walk under them. Look from a safe distance, you can look underneath. Those sidewalks are actually the old railroad tie or railroad rails that were laid across the abutments.
And poured on top of
It's not plywood, is it, making this? Something over the top of the metal rails and then paved over the top of that. The railings are constantly falling off, so even if the bridge is okay, we have to do something with the sidewalk. So the 80,000 is gonna be one of two things. It's either gonna be the town's share of the replacement of the whole bridge. If DOT comes and says, you guys are crazy, you gotta replace the whole thing. But we don't think that's gonna be the case. We think all we're gonna have to do is replace the sidewalks. And we may be on our own to replace those sidewalks. So that's what that is.
Mast Road sidewalk, part of Mast Road, Carl.
This is from Danis Park
To Moose Club.
Not quite, but yeah. Marion Street, I think, is where the sidewalks end now. That anticipates another good-sized grant.
500,000.
If you wanted to move that up in the schedule, I know there's at least one selectman that would be very happy.
Very happy.
That thing's like the moving out project.
Yeah,
It's
that-
been-
that-
it's
It's been
moving
there
out
forever.
every year.
Yeah, that's what's been, well, again, because it's not gonna happen
Without the grant.
And the chances of the grant are two, slim and fat.
Okay, we'll go on to Pleasant Street, Mast Road, Elm, High Street, Main Street intersection.
Yes, that is, in my.
Is that the next roundabout?
It is, it is.
Except that
We were successful in getting a CMAQ grant. I anticipate going out and hiring an engineer probably sometime in the next couple of months to pull together final plans. So the 761,000 is the grant application total. Obviously, when we get to, final design and everything, it could change a little, but that is the grant award amount that we were given. And that deals with both the Pleasant Street, South Mast intersection and the High Street, Elm Street, Main Street intersection where some of you, I think, were on the village planning committee that came up with a concept there, a traffic calming concept to improve the intersection by the library. So the selectmen voted to submit both of those as a package to CMAQ, and we were successful in getting funding for it.
Actually, Carl, just to make sure that what you say is clear, The grant was not for the full 761, that's the total project
Total
cost.
project,
There's a
right.
match.
The grant would be the 446,000, and then the town will have to match, it's a 45% match that the town will have to
Right,
incur.
correct. Thank you, Brian. And we-
45% of 446,000 the town has to match?
45% of the 761 is
Total project.
total project cost.
So that would be anticipated being raised by tax money and,
Impact fees.
well, the impact fees, I don't think that's the correct term, because it was the Bog Road subdivision
Right.
donation.
Offset-
It's not an
offset.
actual impact fee, that was an offsetting revenue.
That was an offsetting revenue, but impact fees could also be used for this project as well. It's a construction project of a road, so I mean, that's,
And I've actually spoken to that developer, and told him we got the grant, and asked him if he's still on board, and as of right now, his answer is yes. He's still hoping that, he's trying to get financing to move that project forward, and he hopes by next year he'll be in a position to
Good.
go along with it.
I will say, I looked in the paper today and saw that there's an ad for selling that property, so with the approvals
Mhm.
associated with it, so not sure, again,
Everything goes with
know,
the sale of
where
the property,
that's-
right, including the
Yep.
the agreed upon amount for the town for the impact for that intersection,
correct, I mean,
The
that's a
approval's
condition of
dependent on a
approval,
condition,
yeah.
right.
the condition of the approval. Okay. And that's a desirable. Now,
Yes.
being as you have your CMAC, CTAP or CMAC, which was it?
CMAC.
CMAC grant, does that become a necessary, Carl, because you seem to have the funding for that?
Well,
Or a portion of the funding at the very least.
in my mind, it could definitely go up to that.
Good, thank you. All right, the next one is aggregate screening equipment.
Yeah, and that, we introduced this last year. We pushed it out to 2013 because this year we're gonna be focused on coming up with a plan for that site and getting our permit approvals to actually begin working the site. So we're currently working with Parks and Rec Commission to develop a final plan. Our hope is that we're not gonna move things twice. We wanna come up with a plan and then work to build that plan over time. And so the screening equipment would be something that we would buy to facilitate that.
Reconstruct Main Street and North Mass Street.
This project is another one that has been floating around forever. It used to be that we had a good-sized grant attached to this. However, the grant has essentially gone away. And as a matter of fact, the actions that the legislature has taken this year have pushed our grant even further away from us. So what I'm recommending is that we just move ahead with it, because we can't wait. I don't know where it'll be in the state's 10-year plan, but we can't wait until the 2020s to redo these streets. So next year would be design money. We hope to, I already mentioned to you in the road plan, we have Pleasant Street next year. What this contemplates is Main Street and North Mast in 2013 and 14. South Mast is pretty much done. So if we can do this design properly and next year's construction properly, my hope is that we'll end up with a brand-new downtown when all this is done over the next 2 or 3 years. I know there are a lot of folks in the community that have been asking us to do that. I know Steve Monier has come into the Board of Selectmen twice in the last 2 years talking about, from an industrial development perspective, we need to make the town more presentable. And what he's looking at is the infrastructure as you come into town, just the way it looks and the way it appears to us, a new business that wanted to locate in town. This would accomplish that. It's not all about aesthetics. I think I've talked to you guys in the past about the condition of the drainage system under Main Street, or lack thereof. We know that pipe, the main drain line under Main Street, has no bottom. The bottom's rotted out of it, so it's a arch top with a dirt bottom, and it's just a matter of time before we have some kind of serious sinkhole or something in the middle of Main Street. So that all needs to be done. North Mass, the drainage is very much undersized and really doesn't function very well. So all of those major roads really need to be redone. So it's time, it's in the schedule, it's up there, but it's expensive.
Carl, would this include the proposal for putting a lot of the overhead utilities underground?
No, I wish it did, but this is only what it costs to do the road and sidewalk and drainage work.
You couldn't comprehend the expense to put the utilities underground.
Well, that's why, because, you know,
Incomprehensible.
Robbie Grady came and talked, we had a meeting over on the Common, and years ago, we met with the utility companies and we talked about underground, which was outrageously expensive. But then we also talked to them about back alley service,
That's the way to go.
where we would move the overhead poles from the front of the buildings to the back of the buildings. That was a much more cost-effective approach that would accomplish just about the same thing. So I'm trying to dig around and find my old notes. A lot of the guys that were in that meeting are no longer at those utilities, but I'm trying to find my notes to start making inquiries so that by next year, when we're ready to start talking about design, we'll be in a position to talk to them and try to get our hands around what would be involved in doing that.
I would think that some of the utility lines and poles would need to be relocated anyway,
Yeah.
given the plans for
Drainage.
drainage and for road reconstruction.
Yeah, I'm sure I know there are some,
I mean, you got some poles that are virtually on the curb line.
and worse. Some inside the curb line, there's not enough room between the wall and the pole for us to get through, so we have some issues to solve.
Okay, here comes College Road sidewalk.
Yeah, and we line that up with where College Road sits in the road plan. That sidewalk was identified in the corridor study, master plan that the planning board had done several years ago. It is a connector from the college campus down to Mast Road. So we show it as a separate project here, but we tie it in with when College Road would get redone with the road plan.
When some kid gets hit walking in the middle of the road, that'll push it up a few years.
Well, maybe St. A should donate some money for the sidewalk.
Well,
Let
They
them
don't
donate
have-
$94,000 and we'll build a sidewalk.
they
for
don't
them.
have to land on the side of the road anyway.
The issue with any sidewalk job where there's no sidewalk now isn't
The
the
right of
cost of
way.
the sidewalk, it's the cost of the drainage to support the curb is what it really comes down to. So until we're in a position to redo the road and the drainage, you couldn't build the sidewalk for $94,000. So that's really why they have to tie together, because it would be a lot more than that to just go up there and throw a sidewalk in.
Any more? Catamount and Back Road intersection improvements,
Boy, I don't want to tell you the corridor study that one comes from. That was,
1990.
yes, it was. But
What-
again,
Do we have any hard data from PD on the number of accidents there? Is that, anything like that would support this being pushed?
well, 2013 is when Catamount is in the road plan to get done, so that's why it's positioned where it is. It's my hope that we'll stick to that, that it'll survive, because it does need to be done. I'm sure I'll dig around next year and find whatever crash data I can to support the request
Well, I'm
next
just
year.
bringing it up as
Yeah.
something that would support your narrative.
Is part of this plan to regrade the intersection? Is that,
Yeah, that's the major component of it.
Sightline. Pipe inspection camera and equipment.
This is one, your matrix reflects, we got some estimates, and I was joking with the sewer commission. At their last meeting, they deferred acting on this, but I'm gonna go back to their next meeting and try to get them to participate in this, purchase. However, the 75,000 is not enough. We got some updated quotes, and we should probably up that number to 100,000.
Well, we have 95 on our submission sheet, we have 75 on the matrix.
Okay, I'd settle for the 95. 100 would be better, but I'll settle for the 95.
Okay? And that's in 2012. Please, Nick.
Is there, Carl, do they make systems, vehicle-mounted systems? For instance, with the VACON truck, where, would that be a cheaper route to include or increase the VACON truck cost to cover a system like that?
Well, and the answer is yes, and originally we had that. If you look back 2 or 3 years ago, the VACON number was actually higher for that very reason. We've shied away from it for 2 reasons. One, the image you get, the way those cameras work is you're basically strapping a camera on the end of a nozzle that's spraying enough water to jet it up a 300-foot long pipe. A lot of times that distorts the image, and you don't have much control to really see detail of what's in the pipe. The other thing is, the VACON's a very expensive piece of equipment. To have it sitting there waiting for you to TV a line and take a look at it. Both on the sewer side, we have, and Kathy Hooton mentioned it, the CMOM study, which EPA required us to do this past year. And it's a new maintenance plan. They've really stepped up, or they're making communities step up their collection system maintenance programs. A big part of that is going to be TVing a lot more sewer line than we have in the past. On the drainage side, of course, we've been saying this now for the last 2 years, but they say it's really going to happen. The new NPDES general permit is supposed to get approved. EPA's been holding on to it for a couple of years. When that finally does get approved and kick in, there's the same requirement on the drainage side. We're going to have to start really documenting and inspecting the condition of our drain lines. Right now, we hire a camera company to come in when we have a known problem. If we've got something, geez, something's going on in this line, we can't figure it out, we'll pay somebody to come set up and TV that one pipe. Or if we're doing a construction project and we should check this pipe. We have a lot of pipes that you just can't see in from end to end, no matter how hard you try. It's the way they're built. So the level of TVing we do today is pretty small, but with these requirements and these 2 permits, we're gonna have to do a lot more TVing. So we decided that it would be better for us, and the system we're looking at is one that it would not be a truck-mounted unit. It would be installed in a box trailer, and we would insulate the trailer and set it up so that it could be used in the wintertime. Because our view is that we could have guys out in the wintertime when we have more time, we're not in the middle of construction, and we could be doing a lot of this TVing work at that time of year. So that's what the 100,000 represents. It's a camera system, and it's a good quality camera system. This isn't just a real cheap one. It's a decent one, installed with heater and everything inside a box trailer, so that we can. And the nice thing about the system that we've priced is it would also directly feed into ViewWorks, the ViewWorks asset management program that we have. We would literally be able to download the footage directly into ViewWorks, linked to the asset, so it would really help us with the management of those assets.
Big question is, can you put this on GTV?
If you really wanted to see it, I bet you we could.
Might be a good way to sell your drainage projects.
Yeah, well, I won't say that you'll never see it. I'm not sure about on
Watch meetings
GTV.
or that.
Be a new reality show.
Sewer life.
It'll put swamp loggers out of business. Okay, Tyler Drive and Maple Avenue detention ponds.
This is specifically for the chairman. We have a list as long as your arm of detention ponds and treatment swales that we need to, over the next several years, get in and rebuild. But I know, from comments that the chair made last year, that just having a line that says reconning ponds isn't gonna get us anywhere. So
No, it
These are the
wasn't.
first two that we
Wasn't
have.
this, it was something else. It was
Yes,
your
but we figured the same argument would apply.
drainage improvements or something you said.
So
Well,
what,
I'm glad you have detailed it.
so what we're gonna do, these are the first two, that, the top priority ones, but we got, what, 67 of these things in a table that.
60 swales and ponds, it says right
Yeah.
here.
So we're gonna be working on plugging them in a few a year. And as that evolves, it'll probably land in the same line, and we'll just have a different estimate each year out.
These will be contracted out?
That's the way we built the estimate, right, Mary? Was we would just put it out to bid.
Are they so silted in, Meg, that they need 1,500 cubic yards and 3,600 cubic yards of excavation?
The Maple Ave one is like essentially non-existent. That's for an entire treatment swale. Like that just doesn't even exist at the bottom where the outlet pipe comes out. So that's reestablished.
Which one is that now at Maple Avenue?
At the bottom of Maple Ave where Smith Ave is.
Yeah,
There's a
Right at
pipe
the
that
corner.
crosses right there and it comes out on the south side of the south side of Smith Road there.
okay.
And there's supposed to be a large treatment swale there.
And it's
based
full
on
of
the
trees and
proposed
everything else.
pond. Yeah, there's huge trees and everything in there, so.
Okay.
The water,
Reestablishing.
water kinda goes out behind the apartments and down Spring Street, and it's a real mess.
Okay. Uncanunic Dam repairs. Mountain-based pond, is that what that's for?
Yes, it is, and I am awaiting, back last winter, one of the DES dam inspectors came, and we walked out and evaluated that. We had a complaint last year from a resident adjacent to that dam, that there was boiling, under the dam water. So the DES came out and we walked around, and there are many things that need to be done to that dam. They recommended that we hire a consultant to evaluate that dam. I have not yet gotten a letter detailing all of those things that DES wants us to do, so I've been kind of holding back to get that letter before I run out and hire a consultant. So I want to make sure I get the full scope. But I've set aside some money in the 2010 budget to get an engineer to get out there and evaluate it. So the 50,000 is a best guess placeholder that I have until we really know what's involved with that dam. I really don't know what it is. That's just kind of a order of magnitude placeholder that I put out a couple of years.
Very good.
Question?
Yep.
Is it something that should be put off to 2013, or, I mean, do we know what the significant hazards are?
None of us felt like there was an imminent threat that the dam was ready to fail, but there are issues. There's several issues. If you look at the dam, it's kind of listing. Of course, it's been listing as long as I've been here, but it's listing pretty good. And then the water kind of boiling out of the bottom is probably the biggest concern. There's some good-sized trees that are established that it's not as easy as just cutting them. Something's got to be done with them. So there's quite a few issues there, and so we're going to get a dam consultant in, somebody that is an expert at that, to really take a good look at it and tell us what we should do. But I want to make sure I cover everything that DES is going to require in the letter too, so I'm still waiting on that letter.
Okay. All set, Nick?
Thank you.
Okay, asset management software.
I just mentioned our ViewWorks. You folks probably remember when we originally asked for ViewWorks, we were not approved for the full amount. It became a two-phase project. We feel we're finally at a point where we're ready to kick that next phase in, and as a matter of fact, we just met with a consultant that specializes in ViewWorks. Just this week, we met with him, and I'm anticipating getting from him a more updated scope. So I may come back to you with, and to ask you to adjust this number a little bit after he has a chance to look at where we're at and where we need to get and what we need to add. But that 25,000 is basically the other half from what we saw. That system, though, as you probably can tell just from the things I've said, it's really going to be pretty integral to a lot of the stuff that we're doing in the future with maintaining all of our infrastructure. not just, pavement, but everything.
Wanna make it? Okay, the last one is the replacement trash barrel program, which we talked about in the past.
Yeah, and we've pushed that out again, I think.
How many are we replacing a year now, Carl?
That's the reason I kinda pushed it out. It varies every year, and what was happening 2 or 3 years ago when I first plugged this into the matrix, I think we had a lot of development going on, because we couldn't keep up with the barrels. The last couple of years, it's slowed down to the point where I don't even spend the full budget of, we have a line in the operating budget to replace barrels with, and at the end of every year, it's like, gee, look at that, we got money left over. So, we kind of pushed this off because, there's not kind of a wholesale failure on the barrels. The original green trash barrels are a couple years out of warranty. They all had a 10-year warranty when we put them in, so they're all kind of beyond that life.
They still
But
work.
They still work.
It's in
So,
good shape.
yeah, so we've kind of pushed it out. We'll probably take a closer look at this and see if we really need to.
Spend that money and buy
Wholesale.
extras and stockpile them.
We don't have the room. We just don't have the room.
You wanted a salt shed, you could have a trash barrel shed.
Yeah,
Carl, that brings something to mind. That's conspicuously missing from the matrix.
the salt shed?
You talked about building a new salt shed a few
Yeah,
years ago.
yeah, it's funny, that's another kind of learning curve. When we got kicked off the state bid, the state was told that the municipalities were dragging down, were ballooning up the state's price because we didn't have big enough salt sheds, and, the contractors had to deliver to us more often, so as a result of that, the price for the state was higher. So the commissioner saw that as a low-hanging fruit to save some money, kick the towns out. So of course, my response was, I'll tell you what, I'll put a bigger salt shed, you guys can deliver your whole year's worth of salt all up front, it'll be great. So when they brought us back in and they bid it with the option. They said, okay, DOT salt sheds that are 100% of the capacity will be this price. If you deliver into a municipal garage, it'll be this price. And lo and behold, it was the same price. All the vendors bid the same price. So the whole need for this giant salt shed, though I'd love to have it, the financial need kind of went away when that bid came in. So I haven't pursued it.
One truck can only bring 32 tons at a time. It's got nothing to do with the size of the building. All right, does anybody else have any follow-up questions for Carl before we thank him?
No, but we'll probably have them come back in July.
Well, I will tell you that, as I told Chief O'Brien, Carl, we have our first callback date is July the 7th. And will you be available, or will you be on vacation, or?
No, by July the 7th, I will be back from vacation.
All right, so if we have any questions or callbacks, we'll inform you, and
Absolutely.
you can make yourself
Like
available. We
Megan,
appreciate it.
well,
I might be on vacation.
that's all right, Mike owes us.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right.
I'm on vacation tonight, so he can come.
Who?
No,
Mike Hillhouse.
Oh, yeah. He'd be
He
a
was
good one
supposed
to
to be
send.
here too, but
it'll be
he
his
opted
turn.
for a motorcycle ride to Nova Scotia instead.
All right, then, if anybody have any last questions for the Public Works Department before we seek a motion here?
We move.
All right, well, thank you very much, Carl, for
Thank you,
coming in.
Carl.
Thank you, Meg, for coming and backing up. All right, our next meeting is in 2 weeks on the
16.
16th. Earl will not be able to be here. Anybody else have a problem with being here? Brian, could you please email the folks who have not been here, who are not here tonight, to encourage them to come to our next meeting?
Yep.
Including our Budget Committee representative?
Yep.
I would appreciate that. Okay, anything else? I'll accept the motion.
I did.
Earl made a motion to adjourn, seconded by Lowell. Any discussion? All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Chair votes yes.